Morning, Karen. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, pretty well. Welcome to everybody out there. How's it going with 3 children at home in lockdown?
I guess you can use your imagination, Andrew. You've got just as many kids, so you would know what it was like. It's been a bit of a rough first week, but everyone's doing the best they can, and it's book week this week, so a bit of perhaps an underwhelming book week for kids to be celebrating. But when I do spend a bit of time with them later on, we'll get them all dressed up, and they can get excited about that. So that'll be fun. How about you?
Yeah, look, as you can see, my personal grooming has deteriorated. All 3 hairs in my head need hair cutting, and the search and destroy mission will resume in a few weeks' time, I suspect. But,
good.
Life's like it at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the thing that's reassuring me is how good and strong our group is. We've set up all sorts of different groups. We've got a whiskey group, I noticed, that has started up called the Spirit Fight Club, which is run by your brother, actually, Everett, who the first rule is there is no fight club. But our firm started up all these different social groups, and it's been wonderful. It's really lifted our spirits. But what I want to have a bit of a gripe early on. This is my gripe. It's Andrew's gripe corner. We're getting.
Gosh, it's starting early.
I know it's starting early. Have you noticed the new narrative that's out there? Now, I'm a safety practitioner. Okay, let's be honest. I'm a safety lawyer. But what is this about, where we move away from the safety principles about protecting people from being infected, and we start this discussion about early opening up, and we identify people as anti-vaxxers, and we say that this is the disease of the unvaccinated. And yet all of us know, yes, there's a group of ardent people who are anti-vaxxers, but there's a whole communities who don't understand the urgency and need for it. English may not be the first language, where they live culturally in larger groupings. We know that there's a whole lot of people who live with people who have power over them who are anti-vaxxers. So what we're really saying is, let's open up and make sick and kill a whole lot of people who aren't exercising choices around vaccination. It really bothers me the narrative has changed because we've failed to manage the disease. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's been helped by if you were paying very close attention to the headlines daily. I think that just makes things worse. On one hand, I do understand why there is a bit of a shift. People are tired. I get that. And when you're at home, and like based on what the arrangement that you're talking about as well, crowded homes, children, people to care for, like it's tough. But having said that, it is a sensitive. It's an area that we need to exercise some sensitivity, and we need to look at it a lot more broadly, because there are, although it's great that there's a lot of people who are getting vaccinated and making a point about that, which is fantastic. There are a certain group in the population who desperately want to but can't, or don't know better, simply because, like you said, whoever influences or helps make those decisions for them have a different view. So it's quite complex, and I think we just need to take a step back and just really consider that.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. If someone said to me, a manufacturer came to me and said, look, we're dealing with a dangerous chemical, it could kill people, but look, we just got to deal with it. So we're not going to focus on the safety part of it. You and I would roll our eyes and say, what do you mean, you're crazy? And yet actually that's the conversation that is now presently being agitated at federal government level, that this is okay. And nobody's actually saying, actually people who are entirely innocent will die and be made ill by this. And Australia needs to make decisions about that sort of stuff. But as a safety practitioner, we don't give up on safety because it's hard. We actually double down. But look, that's my gripe for the day. I'll try and control it. It's starting to shit me, and we seem to have moved so far away as a community from the thing we should be doing, which is protecting our people and making them safe and healthy every day, to being concerned about issues which are much more about politics than about people, and politics is meant to be about people. That said, let's go on to the WorkPack decision. I'm going to move on.
You make a good politician, Andrew. I think you should put your hat in for the running.
My skin is far too thin, as you probably noticed. We talked about WorkPack decision over the last 2 weeks, and last week we talked about its impact on individual contractors. And in the middle of the WorkPack decision, there was a discussion on a case called Hollis and Vaboo, which is what's called the control test on independent contractors. That are these people genuinely controlling the business they're doing as an independent contractor? And there is a passage in there which is around about six lines long that says, look, we don't think Hollis and Vaboo is right. We do think that the idea of the prominence of the contract, the workpack decision around casuals is important, but there is going to be some nuance as it applies to independent contractors. Now, Mark Fellman, a barrister that we trust and is a friend of the firm, is one of the barristers running 2 High Court cases on that starting on Tuesday, personal contracting first and JAMSEC second. And we're going to get him along in a few weeks' time to talk about what happened in the case, and then we're going to get him back once the decision is out, hopefully, to do just a special session on independent contractors, which may not be the Friday briefing, if that makes sense. That might be a special video we just do on it, where we give you tips around independent contracting. But I just thought I'd let you know, we will know more in the next 3 to 4 weeks around independent contracting and what are the new rules, how do you amend your contracts, what is the amended process. We'll know it because the High Court is interested, really interested in this issue. Next case for you is TRGD and Comcare. Fascinating case because it doesn't deal with COVID, but it sort of does deal with COVID, which is where an employee went out to a community to conduct some consultations. The risk assessments would have shown that there's a type of disease that person could have got had they done an appropriate risk assessment and done all the appropriate cleaning and things that were involved. But as a result of that, he ended up with an acquired irritable bowel syndrome. He was sick and unwell for a significant period of time. He put in a workers' comp claim and that was accepted. I reckon, Andrew, if you're a poly, I reckon by morning tea on day 1, you will have told about a dozen people what you really think of them. Thanks, Chris. I think that's probably right. And that's one of the reasons I'm not a poly. But the point of this case is it goes to a very simple test of where there is a known risk, you should do a risk assessment. And you should set up a risk assessment, a series of controls and follow them. If you don't, it's definitely going to be compensable.
On that, Andrew, it's also, I think with arising from COVID is that I suspect there's going to be naturally a heightened expectation from employees around safety, more than just, the COVID plan or COVID safe plan. It's that, am I safe? Is everything above board? Because if it's going now, there's so much risk tied in terms of people being unwell or being hurt that what would have been left at put up to the side previously or not being raised may actually change.
I just hope you're right. I hope it becomes a rallying call rather than us becoming immune to the syndrome of COVID and letting people drop dead because we don't want to do it because it's too hard. I hope it does become a place to heighten awareness of people and say, actually, during the most dire things, we can actually control it if we do it well. So I think it's a real lesson, but we'll see. What I am saying is it's definitely compensable. So there's a case which is a similar set of facts, not COVID, nowhere near as serious, but compensable. Now, an irritable bowel syndrome that goes on for a couple of years that prevents a person from coming to work on a regular basis. If you look at any premium management process, it's an expensive process, all because they didn't do a risk assessment and then follow the controls. Next couple of cases are SAFER and ENCO, which are cases around union right of entries. The cases are not that exceptional. They talk about the fact that the intent of the legislation is to ensure people have representation, and where they raise issues, they are entitled to get someone with skills on site to assist them with those. And what it shows is these cases show, because police arrested a number of union officials who came on site. It was argued that the union officials didn't have coverage of the people, that their notice was insufficiently accurate, yada, yada, yada. All the dumbest stuff you could ever believe in your life, because a union official is not a frightening person. If you've got engagement with your employees and your employees trust you and you're doing the right thing, union officials don't do much. If you're not doing much, they can't do much because nobody wants to follow.
As a former union official, I can tell you it's an engagement game. So it's an engagement game from the union, and it's also an engagement game from the employer. So it's a matter of who does it better.
Sure, get advice about it. You get a notice, you can keep them waiting for a bit, get advice. Happy to do it, but you'll always hear from me, what are you scared about? And what are you trying to do? Now, the answer is, they might go into the smoko room and people who are non-union members may get really shitty about it. Oh, good. As far as I'm concerned, good. Why try and control a group of people whose best skill is showing that you're trying to control them? Why actually poke the bear? Why not just be generous and kind? Yes, don't let them interfere in production. Yes, do provide facilities for them to talk to people. Be polite, because they're a third party you need to engage in. And like any third party or stakeholder in the business, the idea is not to fight them all the time. The idea is actually to demonstrate to your employees that you're not scared of them being there, and you'll always be the right person. And if they're unhappy, you'll always listen to them. Anyway, I put the case there just to show you a business that fought to the end and kept fighting and lost every single fight, as did the police, who ended up with a massive costs order, okay? So a couple of lessons out of that. Police around Australia are not going to be too excited about you doing this without a Supreme Court type of order, okay? They're not going to be that excited to come on and deal with trespass issues. And second, it's very clear the legislation is designed to allow access, even if it's flawed process, to get union officials on site. So don't be pushing back all the time. Now, what I thought I might do is, before I talk about mandating injections, is throw to you, we promised last week we'd have a wellbeing model that we'd put up that you've developed with your team, and you've got an incredibly generous offer, which I think is great as well. And I want people to actually take this offer up. So when Karen's saying this, I don't normally give away freebies. Anyone who knows me knows my Scottish background would prevent me from giving away anything, including a breath. But Karen runs that business, and Karen is giving this away, and she's pretty tight as well. So it's good. Karen, over to you.
Oh, that's not true at all. Anyway, all righty. So look, what I've got for you all, we spoke last week around a wellbeing index. We've actually got something, we actually do have this in place for your team as well, Andrew, but I'm not going to load up your data. So what I've got Everett from our team to do. It shows
where my bad behaviour affects wellbeing. So
yes,
you're not putting up bad data. Thank you.
Okay. So what I've got Everett to do is just to mock up an example for you in terms of, and yeah, all those names there, they're all fictional anyway. But look, what this tool can do, it's quite simple in the way that he's set it up. It just allows you to input some data on a periodic basis, whether you want to do it weekly, monthly, or whatever. In this case, it's a monthly through your monthly check-ins. You can do it through, collect your data through a survey or manage your in-person conversations, is up to you. But the whole purpose of the tool is to help give you a visual tool to gauge how your well-being, employee well-being is tracking at any given point in time, as in any particular month, and how it's also trending. So it's a fantastic tool, very easy to use. However, I'm not going to just send it out to you on a link, because I think the best thing about these tools is that to have them customized to your own needs. So I've spoken to Everett, and I've said to him, look, what we will do is that if it's something that you think you're would be helpful to your team or organization, very happy to give it to you. No, there's no charge for that. But I do would want you to spend probably half an hour with Everett, so he can help you just customize it so you get the immediate benefit of it. Because
that's free as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's free. That's free. Yeah, just spend. Everett will help set it up for you, the right categories and groups and all that stuff, just so that you can get it and start running with it right away. But anyway, so that's it. So nice and visual, and something that will give you real information to help you make the decisions you need to make to support your employees best, not just during now, but ongoing. So that's it.
That's very good. And can I just say to you, this is an invaluable tool we use in our business. It does allow us to actually circle events that occur within the business to see the impact of those events across what you're doing. So it gets around the problems of recency in surveys. So please take this free offering. It'll probably be the last one you ever get from me. Sorry. No, it's not.
I love how you claimed it as your own offer, Andrew. It's mine, but anyway.
Well, definitely the last free one you get. Okay, so we're back on board. Please take Karen up on the offer. In the last week, I think Nina, Matt, and I particularly have been dealing with the idea of mandating vaccinations, the complexity with people with health-related issues where it is a protected attribute and they can't be mandated. What is the process that you use? Can you use termination? All of that stuff. So there's probably, I think we're probably looking at maybe 10 to 15 businesses, all of whom we're chatting to. Can I just talk about some very simple rules? And the first thing is, before we talk about mandating vaccinations, you must have an understanding of the health reasons behind mandating vaccinations. Because before you can do a risk assessment, you've got to feed in the health information into it. And you've got to know in respect of that health information as to what are the people who cannot be vaccinated. Because it's a different issue, isn't it? You know, the different issue is there are some people who have a protected attribute under discrimination law. You cannot prevent them from working without running the risk of an adverse action or discrimination. And you must protect through understanding their health-related conditions and the risk of exposure and transmission, and providing a system that allows them to work. Because remember, transmission with this disease can happen through vaccinated people. It's complex, isn't it? So mandatory vaccination helps. We've seen New South Wales have decided they're going to open industry with full vaccinations so that they can basically kill people who are at home. You know, not the smartest thing I've ever seen done. But I want you to think around that in mandatory vaccination, because vaccination is not an answer in itself. It's just something that protects that industry. And remember, industrial manslaughter extends beyond the boundaries of your business, okay? And your obligations to third parties extends beyond the obligations of your business. So the two key things are get the health information right. The second thing, very important second thing, is to go now apply that information into your risk assessment to deal with people who refuse vaccination. When what does that mean? Make a decision about what that means. And that's a consultation process under any award and under all safety legislation. Must be consulted on. And for those who do have a protected attribute, is it inherently unsafe for them to work? Well, we can't stop paying them. We can eventually terminate their employment. Is that really what you want to do to a pregnant woman? I don't think so. So this is much more complex than people. The idea of mandating vaccination is not as simple as it seems. All right, what about where a client you service mandates that you cannot come on site if you're not vaccinated? Peter, really good question. The answer is, at the moment, as a supplier of service, you can say to somebody, you're not allowed in here unless you're vaccinated. And there are going to be some real fights about people who cannot be vaccinated, but you can say to protect your employees, you will not allow someone to come on site unless they have proof of vaccination. Okay, and that will be a whole new grey market of false certification processes from My Health and places like that. But great question, Peter. And our case problem deals exactly with that type of issue today. So I want to raise it with you, not to try and answer it, because we're going to have a couple of cases soon on this. We're going to see some real clarity around some of the disputes that come out. But I want you to understand this is not easy. Okay, this is not as simple as mandating it. Karen, I think it's probably time we shoot over. We're ahead of time today, but that's good because the problem is a gnarly, complex problem. Civil City was a design and fit out business for inner city skyscrapers. It worked with suppliers, construction businesses, clients, and a range of other people. They continue to work in the office and on-site during lockdown using a COVID WorkSafe safety plan and risk assessment. The construction industry became aware of medical evidence that the Delta variant of COVID was being transmitted through young workers by aerosol transmission more than physical transmission. Can I just say to you, that is a state of truth, okay? So physical transmission is continuing to happen, but overwhelmingly, the most concerning process at the moment is aerosol transmission in 25 to 35-year-olds. The traditional COVID-safe plans of 1.5 metre social distancing were unlikely to work where people are congregated without masks, cough, spoke loudly, or were doing heavy exercise. Now, that was true also under the old variant, but it's much more true under the current one, where you can have fleeting transmission. Towards the end of lockdown, the principal contractor mandated vaccines, as there was ample supply of Pfizer vaccines. That's obviously, we're talking in the future at the moment. The managing director of Civil City, All Go Wells, and you notice that if you run that together, it's All Go Wells. That's my little bit of poetic license here today. Considered there was no need to mandate vaccines, and when the government order for wearing face masks outside dropped off, he didn't seek to enforce his COVID-safe plan of mandatory face mask wearing. Nearly all his staff who went on site were between 25 to 35 years of age. The other people on site were commonly drawn from communities where the virus was still prevalent. There were high infection rates in the unvaccinated, and it was known that the vaccinated people could transmit the disease. Next slide, Soph. It was a common practice to work on drawings and attend site meetings over coffee, and a large proportion of the workforce were smokers, that's of the contractors. Kerry, a design engineer who didn't smoke, attended a site meeting on the footpath outside the building they were fitting out. He had his face mask beneath his nose. The MD was present and was not wearing a mask. A plasterer who was fully vaccinated but living in a family with one unvaccinated child who had a runny nose and breathing problems also attended the site meeting. The plasterer smoked, coughed, was sweating profusely from his hard work before the meeting. He was physically intrusive, very close to people, spoke loudly, and no one said anything. He was not wearing a mask in breach of the swims prepared for the site. Several days later, both the MD and Kerry developed flu-like symptoms. The project was running behind schedule. Both attended work to get over the completion deadline. The MD was first to get very sick and was admitted to hospital, tested, and shortly after was ventilated in ICU due to COVID. You'll notice later he did not die. Kerry also tested positive, but sadly died at home 3 days later. 4 other staff were also infected during this period. So let's go to the poll. And here are the questions. Karen, you'll have to, I accidentally deleted the questions, so the rating. So you tell me how people are performing and when we can start talking again.
Yeah, sure, no worries. It's just they're moving pretty quickly. That it's quite a disturbing case study.
Beg your pardon?
It's quite a disturbing case study.
It is a disturbing case study, isn't it?
While we're just doing that, Andrew had a whole heap of messages coming through from people around the tool. So good interest. Thanks, everyone. So what we'll do is Soph usually sends out an email following up from today's webinar anyway, and we'll put a prompt in there for you to get in touch. And as you do, we'll follow up early next week and get the tool to you. So
thanks very much for that, Margaret, for your comment. Yes, this is a relevant case study because it's drawn from about 4 or 5 issues we're currently dealing with, and it's our safety team, can I say, are struggling to get traction at times the way they should on this particular issue.
All right. We're nearly there, Andrew. So probably just another 3 seconds, everybody, and we'll get talking about the results. So.
All right. Let's follow up. How do we go with question 1? Could the MD be prosecuted for industrial manslaughter or reckless endangerment, Karen?
Let me load it up. Here we go.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Okay. Well, we've got most people who are saying yes. And let's just talk briefly about what industrial manslaughter is. So industrial manslaughter is a breach of duty. So have we got a breach of duty here? So let's go to what reasonably practical. I know I do this every week and I'm sorry, but I like just going to first principles. Is there a hazard? Yes, there is COVID. What is the level of risk of that? It's extreme. Why is it extreme? Because it is frequent and fatal. Is there controls that exist in place? This was a construction site, okay? Let's be really clear. It was a construction site. Let's say it's over $350,000. It definitely needs a swims. It had a swims. The swims did identify the risk. It required face mask wearing and social distancing, and shouldn't have been smoking on site. Anyway, thank you very much, Margaret. And the MD should have known all of that. And the MD was aware of all the health information. Remember, what is a hazard is taken from what is the industry and population knowledge. So the nature of the hazard and how it creates a risk was known to the MD. So the MD has a personal knowledge. No doubt the company is liable for breach of duty. Was there gross negligence? So this is something which was their criminal negligence. Well, that's where the issue sits in this question, is how negligent was it? Was it just a breach of duty, or is it something that goes to the criminal negligence, that it's so negligent, that it's so obvious they need to do something? I would have thought by the end of COVID, where you know the transmission can occur from vaccinated people, and you're permitting people to stand in areas with people you have no idea about whether they're vaccinated or not, even though they do have mandatory vaccinations, coughing, spitting, talking, and you're not, as a leader, wearing a mask. Doesn't matter. The court's not interested if you got sick. The court's saying, how dare you? How dare you act as a leader in contempt of what is clearly something you must do when you're dealing on these sites. So you may not get up to industrial manslaughter and the gross negligence, but the next thing is, were you indifferent to the risk? Was there a likelihood of serious risk, and was injury or death suffered, reckless endangerment? and he's definitely guilty of reckless endangerment. That's 5 years jail throughout Australia. Okay? So mightn't get up on the industrial manslaughter, but definitely up on the reckless endangerment. And the company would be definitely liable for reckless endangerment, which is, $3 million or more throughout Australia as well. So I just wanted to put that up there because I don't think people actually get it. The next question is, could employees and family of carey have a common law claim? Well, the answer is it's clearly in breach of a safety regulation, which is pleadable in any common law claim. And when you look at what is common law negligence, negligence is, was there a duty owed to the people who were there? So that's a question of remoteness. When you have someone standing there, well, it's a non-delegable duty to your employees. So the question of remoteness, is the worker somebody I'm responsible for? No question. So there is a duty that you have explicitly to the person. What does that duty require? What is the standard of care that's exercised around it? Quite clearly was set out in the SWIMS, at least to a minimum standard. So both at common law and under safety legislation, there's breaches at common law. And was there damage done? Absolutely. So this would be a claim that would never find its way to court. It would be paid out very, very early on because this is such clear negligence. Okay, now I know we don't talk about it, but can I just say to you, in all jurisdictions, the impact on workers' compensation is incredibly profound. And yes, it is. Yeah, Kate, the fact that New South Wales are relaxing and appeared not to get basic health information. If you see actual Chant, who's the woman up there, you can see the discomfort she's having with the politicising of what's going on there. It's actually happening in each state or territory, how public health officials are increasingly concerned by standing next to politicians quoting public health officials, and you can just see them squirming in it. But what I want you to know is that when a common law claim comes in, or when it is clear there is negligence in the workers' comp claim, in all jurisdictions, the premium will not reduce. So the statistical estimate that exists there will not go down even if the person recovers. Why? Because sitting behind the nature of the injury is a potential compensation claim, common law claim. So rather than a person getting better from COVID and you coming back to work and you say, oh, well, that's good, we'll gradually get the premium reducing. If there's negligence within there, the insurer will likely hold on to the statistical estimate, which means that your premium stays very high. So do you see how important this is? Not just a common law part to it, there is the impact on workers' comp. So in contracting of the illness, we had some people early on say, well, by the way, what are people saying here? I'm just rolling through. Yeah, everyone's agreeing with me. I thought this problem was harder than it was, but everyone's got it right. I feel like I'm talking to the converted here. Yes, it wasn't identified as an illness for the purpose of compensation early on, and people kept thinking that was, so there you go, you can't get compensation. Well, can I just say to you absolutely clearly, if someone gets injured because of being at work or ill because of work, and it's COVID, it's compensable, okay? Really simple. And what we're seeing from all the aligned case law is that this is going to be a problem which spreads beyond COVID in the future. And we may get people starting to argue that other diseases they capture at work, the common type of diseases they capture at work, are also compensable. Now, do you understand what this means? With Karen, which is why Karen raised the question earlier. She said, will this change our culture around health? Well, it's certainly going to change our culture around what is compensable health, where people don't have personal leave but get flu because of a failure in your system around that. Okay, so question 3 is the sneaky question in this one, because what question 3 is saying to you is the world's changing. The world is changing because people will start to see the connection between illness and injury and the behaviour of employers following COVID, and it will change a culture of claiming. But I want it to be clear, this is a compensable claim. May have been a repeat, but did you see foreign correspondent about drugs? No, I didn't, Margaret, but I will now that you've sent it through. So can we just remember that? The reason we focused at the very beginning of this session on the attack on safety as a concept through our politicians is this is where we end up, isn't it? This is where the rubber hits the road. And we have this division in the road where we go, are we serious about safety in people's lives and health? or are we serious about spin? And the answer is, we want people to go home safe every day. We want them to be healthy and well. And as Australians, this great diverse population of people, that's what we want for everyone, not just white educated people who can get vaccinated. We want it for everyone. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you. We're on time. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for being involved, and great to see you buying into Karen's freebie. That is just fantastic. And you will get, I can promise you, the feedback you get out of that is exceptional, and the capability you draw from it. So it's good. See you later. Thank you very much again, Karen. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone. Bye.